We are back here on Unverified. Welcome in as we get ready for the 2026 IndyCar season. Tony Donahue, Kyle Cuthbertson with you tonight. We may hear from David Land. He is actually out in Phoenix in between 2 days of testing here at the Diamond in the Desert as IndyCar returns for the first time since the late 2010s. Tony, Kyle, with you. We appreciate you. Please feel free to jump in the chat, ask us some questions. You see the fantasy link on Grid Rival is connected there as well. Kyle, we got a lot of notes, a lot of things to discuss heading into what'll be day 2 of the test out in Phoenix. And then next week, we get ready for the streets of St. Petersburg, Florida. 3 straight races to start 2026 for IndyCar. A lot of news, a lot of notes to get into. We're going to discuss Phoenix. We're going to discuss the first race of the season. The field of 33 is starting to mold its way into shape. We're going to discuss that as well. Kyle, welcome in on a Tuesday night, just a few days away from heading down to St. Petersburg, Florida next week.
Yeah, pleasure. Feels like the offseason. Well, no, I can't even say the offseason felt long. It did. But, being a week out, we're going to St. Pete. There were IndyCars on track last week. There were IndyCars on track today. They'll be back tomorrow. The season has fully commenced, like I've been saying on the show. We took 2 weeks off. It's been 2 weeks since we last did a show. I had to miss last week because we're so busy. I was in Houston, Texas. David was in Sebring, so he's been both weeks. He was working on the scene in Houston last weekend in between the 2 weeks of attending IndyCar tests, so he's been busy. He'll get home and turn right back around for St. Pete. So he might show up, but we'll have him next week to discuss Phoenix in full. Because obviously right now we are in between the days. And things felt a little quiet from Phoenix today. I'm not going to lie. We had the 2 Penske cars on the top. It looked like a Chevy day for most of the day if you kept up with the live timing. And Kyle Collette got into the wall. Other than that, what do you know, Tony?
Yeah, David Malukas was fastest with Joseph Newgarden second, followed by Will Power, Kyle Kirkwood, and Alex Palou in today's test. Collette was fastest out of the 3 rookie drivers. They let them go out this morning and have about that first hour or so of practice after the field completed install laps. Kyle said that the sun kind of played a role into missing the apex of the corner, clipped it, spun, made slight contact with the wall. The Ed Carpenter Racing drivers, they put in the most laps today. Rossi had 118, Christian Rasmussen 128. Obviously, it makes sense. They missed the Sebring test last week, so trying to get as much seat time as possible here over the 2-day test out in Phoenix. The rest of the top 10, Marcus Armstrong, Felix Rosenquist, Scotty McLaughlin, Scotty Mack is 8th, Scott Dixon 9th, and Alexander Rossi 10th. Kyle, when you look at this, a lot of the same oval players that we've talked about, especially on the short ovals, right there in the top 10. Just outside the top 10, Graham Rahal, 11th, Marcus Ericsson, 12th, and Renus VK, 13th. Interesting there. I'll start with Graham Rahal. I like to see him 11th. Look, when you look at a test like this going into a new track where it doesn't seem like really too much of that second groove was worked on today, maybe that's something that we will see tomorrow. But when we talk about Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing heading into the 2026 season, it's get shit happen, make shit happen, get shit done. But that's going to happen on oval. So I think seeing Graham just outside of the top 10 there is very intriguing for that team. Anything else stick out for you when we look at the top 13 drivers on today's speed charts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Graham P11 is I take that. That's a win for the Rahal team. Look, and Mick Schumacher is in his second day now of oval testing, and we haven't heard much about it outside of seeing that he's been on track, which is a good thing on your second day of oval testing. I mean, I think so far from testing, I looked in around the middle of the day, and the Chevys were really quick. I think seeing David Malukas at the top is probably the least surprising thing. You mentioned yesterday when we were at the museum to me, your Dave Malukas is is on your brain. I'm not gonna say it's who you're picking, but it's on your brain for the 500, right? Like he finished second last year. I think the kid on ovals, short ovals, a lot of people are kind of saying to kind of take it easy on the kid until maybe Gateway, maybe midway through the season is when we should really evaluate how he's doing. I think, look, off of what we're seeing right now, third race of the season or second race of the season at Phoenix, that partnership might go up, like start with a bang here, you know?
Yeah, and we talked to David Malukas on media day, and I asked him, I said, do you put pressure on yourself early on in the season, if things are going right to keep that momentum going, but if they're not going right, because like Simon Pagino told me this one time a couple years ago when he moved over to Meyer Shank, it sometimes takes a driver 6 months to really get acclimated with a team. Well, that's the season, right? That's St. Pete to the season finale, and when there's not a lot of preseason testing, and David had to move to Charlotte. I mean, you're trying to speed a lot of things up, but I do think he's going to win his first race this year. I don't think that's out of the question. Obviously, as you mentioned, what comes to mind is a place like Gateway, where he's been super fast at and has had good results. Had his first career podium there a few years back with the HMD Dale Coyne Racing Honda. So I think there are big time expectations on David Malukas, especially to start out the season hot. And then look right there, right in third, Kyle, Will Power. Everybody is keeping their eye on Will Power. We just saw the hilarious commercial that aired on Sunday for the first time. And if you didn't dial up the phone number that is on the billboard for Will Power, be sure to do that because it is spectacular. So Will Power, we talked about it kind of maybe taking a step back on ovals over the last couple of years. He hasn't really been in contention at the Indianapolis 500 since winning it back in 2018. But I was very impressed to see the Andretti Will Power connection there, P3, because as we know, outside of Marcus Ericsson second on track last year at the 500, Kirkwood did win last year at St. Louis, which he kind of swept under the rug when I asked him about that on media day. He said, well, we really got lucky and the Penske's were knocked out and the strategy played out. I was like, all right, Kirk, you still won the race, right? So seeing maybe Andretti take that step with Will Power leading the charge, nice to see him there in third spot today.
Well, it's definitely it's going to be necessary for them to kind of be right in the mix speed-wise with Penske on the short ovals and the ovals to contend for a championship. I think Kyle Kirkwood's a guy who was, there was a point in the season in June where only two drivers had won races and Kyle Kirkwood had won three of them. I mean, it wasn't just like he won one. He had 3 race wins, and had Alex Palou not been Alex Palou in June, we were looking at Kyle Kirkwood champion, right? So he's definitely in the top 3 names that we need to be talking about when it comes to championship hopes. In St. Pete, who do you watch have a good or a bad day? It's going to be Kyle Kirkwood, and everybody's going to be looking at Will Power because of what we know Andretti can do on the street courses. But you quit looking at the new one. Kyle Kirkwood's been here this whole time, and he's going to be a contender for the title.
Yeah, and I think when you look back to last year's season, and Palou said this at media day, like Kirkwood would have been off to an incredible start if it wasn't for obviously the historical tear that Palou started the season on, ultimately winning the championship. And I think for Kirkwood, he hasn't finished outside of the top 8 on a street course in over 2 years. And you think about the first 2 races are Arlington street course, new street course, and St. Pete. And then you look at a short oval, which he won on last year at Gateway. It was starting the season off at Phoenix. And then obviously you go to Barber and Long Beach. So I think you're right. I think we're going to be talking about going into the month of May, Kyle Kirkwood certainly as a championship contender. But Kyle, do you see this comparison all season of what Malukas is doing at Penske and what Will Power is doing at Andretti, and kind of comparing those 2 rides? Are we going to see that throughout the season?
I think so. I think that's definitely a good benchmark to see where the 2 are. I mean, look, Will Power, obviously, not young, probably as young or hungry as David Malukas. Well, he's definitely not as young, right? But maybe not as hungry because he's already won the championships, won the Indy 500. That's not to say that he's not hungry. I mean, I've gotten to spend some time with Will Power at a go-kart track running shifter karts just for the fun of it. The guy is hungry and he wants to win another championship, or else he wouldn't be at Andretti. But I think, that's going to be the benchmark I think everyone's going to look at. Is it right? Is it correct to do that? I don't know. I mean, look, a Penske car is a Penske car, and Andretti's where it's at. And Malukas was racing basically a Penske car beforehand, so just not with all of the bells and whistles, right? So I don't know. I mean, that's definitely what everyone's going to do. Is it right? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to win a race in IndyCar. We know that, but I think once Malukas breaks through and gets that first victory, it's going to allow him to stay more consistent. It's going because remember, I mean, this is the first time, obviously Foyt last year, 2 years ago he didn't start the season until midsummer. He had a slow start last year with Foyt, kind of started picking up momentum throughout Indy. Obviously, was on the front row on the streets of Detroit, was battling on the short ovals up towards the front. So if he can get off to a good start, I think we're talking about your championship contenders. Let's just say when we really start thinking about championship, which is probably post Indianapolis 500 when we turn the calendar to June, we're going to be talking about Palou, Dixon, Power, Malukas, maybe a Lundgaard, obviously Kyle Kirkwood. I think there's 6 to 8 realistic champions that we could see. You could probably cut that in half about 4 races into the season, and then I think we'll have a championship battle on our hands when we get to the month of June and kind of turn the chapter and the page on the Indianapolis 500. Something that was announced on Friday. We kind of been juggling it and talking about it and really, Kyle, making jokes about it of who TBA is going to be in the 18 car. We finally got the news that it was indeed going to be Romain Grosjean. He was at the test today. He is in that 18 car with Dale Coyne Racing. Dennis Hauger, the rookie, will be in the 19 car, obviously with Andretti Alliance. So the full field is set. Everybody who's in Phoenix, we expect to be full-time contention. Now, do we get to midseason and do we start seeing some people pulled out of a seat? Certainly possible, especially Kyle. I know you have a great chart that you have handy and it's on your social media, but we've talked about it on the show on Unverified, how many free agents there are to be at the end of this season. And a lot of times we saw, Connor Daly, Ryan Hunter raised that perfect example of, hey, this guy's contract's up. It's not working. We got through Indy. Let's put somebody else in that car to evaluate maybe what we need moving forward. So what we know is that Grosjean is indeed signed and the full field for IndyCar is set. Now it could add a Prema at Long Beach, which is what we've talked about on the show over the last month or two, is that Prema more than likely, whether under the banner of Prema or bought out by another possible team that is connected to Road to Indy. What we keep hearing, we could see Colin Milot at Long Beach, and then Prema or whatever the team name is will have the option to either take 2 engines into the month of May and run the Indianapolis 500 with 2, whether that's a Colin Milot alongside of maybe a Yuri Vips who brings some sponsorship money, maybe somebody else. But Kyle, I'm convinced that when I left the Prema after party in Nashville after Waka Flocka saying 4 words on the mic, I'm convinced that's the last time that we are going to see Robert Schwartzman.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And that's actually kind of a shame because he's our Indy 500 pole sitter. I mean, the car sitting in the IMS Museum right now of the Robert Schwartzman pole car. I mean, it's a shame. He definitely didn't have the results, I think, throughout the rest of the season that you would have liked to see, especially on road courses, right? I think him in a better seat for a season is definitely worth another look. But I do, if we get Prema on the grid this year, I think Callum Milot is a guy. It's kind of crazy that, it kind of went hush-hush for a while. Now we're a week out from St. Pete, and it's kind of just I think it might have been like a formal announcement that they're not showing up because they're not in the test, but just no Prema is crazy.
Yeah, and so I got this news in early January. I think I mentioned it on here. I know that I tweeted it out and put it up on Patreon of that, like, they have people, right? They don't have a lot of people. It was funny today because Bob Pockris posted a photo of Mick Schumacher being towed into the pits, and on that car was a girl that works at IndyCar that I've worked with at HMD named Grace, and it's like, oh, well, Grace obviously has left Prema and moved somewhere else. So they do have some engineers, they do have people in place, but more than likely, I'm confident to say we're not going to see Prema until Long Beach. But also, Kyle, on the flip side of that, it's like a rabbit hole that we can go down. Does Ilott move into what would be the 83 car, which was on the pole last year? Then do you have a second car at Prema ready to go with Chevy for maybe a ride buyer? Or does that Chevy engine maybe get sent somewhere else where I don't know. Let's just throw out somebody who we know has money with Devlin DeFrancesco. Does another team possibly run an extra entry at the 500 for Devlin? Is Devlin maybe in line somewhere else? Let's just dive into what the Indianapolis 500 field could look like. Obviously, we're going to get the 33. We know that with the full-time competitors. We know that with obviously Elio, Ryan Hunter-Ray, Ed Carpenter. What we don't know is who's going to be in the 98 Honda. All signs seem to point to Colton Herta, but Kyle, I haven't really heard anything outside of that over the last couple of weeks on will we see Colton in that 98. Obviously, the second Dry and Ryan Bowl car next to Jack Harvey, I am 99.9% sure that will be Connor Daly's ride. In fact, word that I got today out of Phoenix was that Connor Daly will certainly be in that ride. Now, we talked about like the rabbit hole of if this happens, then this domino falls to make this happen. If Prema were to only run one entry at the 500, it obviously opens up a Chevy engine that can maybe be opened up for Dry and Reinbold to run Phoenix. I think if that was going to happen, they would certainly be a part of this test. Now, that's not saying they can't show up in 2 weeks at Phoenix when they go back for the race and make it and run the race. But we still need that Dry and Reinbold confirmation of Connor Daly. The 98 car at Andretti that was vacated by Marco Andretti is still open, possibly Colton Herta. Jacob Abel is still somebody that's in the fold. They have been searching for kits, engine leases, and teams to get it in the chassis. And they really, if you bring up the Indy Next crew, they have the crew. So Jacob Abel also in the fold. I'm confident to say, Kyle, we will be at 33. I'm hesitant to say that we'll have anything more than 34 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the math as you're saying it, and right, we're at 30. We're at 30 confirmed right now, right?
Yes.
So where do the last three come from? I mean, so Andretti Global running a fourth, possibly. Who is that? Is that Colton Herta? That's that could be interesting. That gets us to 31. What am I missing? I mean, and if Prema gets bought, but if they don't, those engines go somewhere. And this is like we're getting to crunch time now. Like it's getting to March. I think usually it's like mid-April is when the latest these things can go down, right? So, Sato.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
We're at 31 now.
Mentioned this the other day on my Patreon article. It was like, we haven't heard that Sato is officially confirmed. Now, you don't show up in October and run Takuma Sato with a full livery on the oval after he led the most laps last year and put on the front row. So, obviously, that gets you to 31. 32 would be the Andretti 98. 33 would be, I think we've already included Harvey in that, right? So, right. Connor would get us to 34, maybe. We'll have to do that math, but I think 34 is right there. But don't count out a possibility of a Chevy engine coming open if Prema only runs one, and maybe a Juncos or a Foyt. If a ride buyer shows up with a check that's going to clear, that is going to cover everything that they need, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Chevy is going to be right at 18 engines. Maybe 19 could be a stretch, and Honda's right at 16. Could they maybe pull out a 17th? We shall see. Catherine Legg's interesting. I mean, where would you put her? Because at this point, Kyle, she did mention, I thought, at the end of the season last year that she was no longer really tied with the manufacturer. Obviously, she's been a Honda/Acura driver most of her career, and certainly in every Indianapolis 500 that she has ran. But if I'm IndyCar and I'm IMS and I look at, she has that Elf sponsorship and it went away to NASCAR last year. And we had that huge display in the infield of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They got a lot of women and ladies involved into the sport. I would try to find anything I could to put Catherine in the car.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I have the same question of just where does she fit in? I think David has mentioned on the show the last couple of weeks is I don't think that Honda connection with Kat is as strong as it once was when she was running an IndyCar. I mean, it's tough, man. The predictions right now, because I think the pool of drivers is so low, honestly. Yeah. Like I think we get to 33 and then it stops because I guess you add Connor in the dry and ride board car. That doesn't add another seat. I think Jacob Abel, if Prema doesn't run, I think Jacob Abel gets an engine lease. Um, if Prema gets bought by who we think will buy it, and they decide they're ready for the 500 and they run the 5, because it's a functioning team still is the thing, right? Like you're buying a functioning team that's just not running races. So if you buy it,
and you're buying everything except
right,
for the building. So you'd have to find a building. There's plenty. I mean, when it comes down to it, as you know, Kyle, there are buildings that, hey, can we rent 3 docks over here to store our racing team? And I think that that's certainly a possibility.
I mean, yeah, that'd be interesting to know what the current situation of that building is right now, and where the Prema equipment currently is, right?
So it is still in the Prema building, but if you were to buy Prema, that is the only thing that they do not own is the building that they are
right.
in. You've been by it, so you would probably move everything out of there.
Could you not just continue to pay for the lease though on the building?
Certainly could, but if it's a team that already either has ties or connections elsewhere, then I think you would look into maybe moving a building or being closer to where you want it to be. And what I have heard, and I've kind of heard some things and haven't been confirmed, but the latest that I've heard in the buying from Prema is there is somebody very interested that is fielding cars and road to Indy, and they could go to an existing Indy Next team that has pretty nice facilities. You could figure out who that would be, and may have some room for them to store their cars there, and maybe have a little bit of crossover depending on, because a lot of these all these Indy Next guys, Kyle, as you know, they're off from like May 12th until we roll around to June when we get to Detroit. So there is man and woman power out there. Again, but we talk about this every year. It's, you got to have the 5 things. You got to have the engine. You got to have the chassis. You got to have the driver. You got to have the money, and you got to have the crew. And it's usually the money and the engine are the 2 hardest to come by, especially now where it's just past, the halfway mark of February.
Yeah, and I mean, those engine deals they're pretty exclusive to come by. And I think if you were to not have your own shop and share with someone, that certainly wouldn't be, a very exclusive operation.
Yeah, that is certainly correct. So that's how we get to the field of 33. I wrote about this the other day, Kyle. If you just have 33, let's just do away with that back row shootout. Let's just call it. I don't need to see guys go out there and battle for 31st, 32nd, and 33rd. Something I wanted to mention today that was on my mind. I know you mentioned it as well, Kyle. A missed opportunity, I thought, for IndyCar. You've got a lot of excitement coming off of the really cool commercials. I love the Pelot commercial. I love the Power commercial. We've obviously seen Joseph. We've seen the other commercial with Pato Award, and obviously now Pelot. But I thought this was an opportunity to stream this test live and really get the energy going and build momentum of, hey, this is going to be another cool oval. We may have a second groove. Check it out. Add a new track. And even if it was just something as simple, Kyle, of sending like 2 camera guys to stand in 2 different spots and just move the camera. Like, I just thought it was a missed opportunity today for them to, 1, build up followers and viewership on their YouTube channels, and 2, to give the fans something to tune into and check out throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to me that I know, first of all, just I know how some of these things work, right? Like, you could definitely send someone up on the rooftop and film, which is probably what they did in 2016 when they did the preview. Anybody remember that? I do. Yeah. But to get a full-blown crew out there, and sometimes these things just happen. Like, I know IMSA, when they streamed last second the roar test on the Sunday, that was last second, and it was from a different team. So like, I think, if they couldn't make it happen, they couldn't make it happen. Now, the funny part in my brain, thinking about not being able to get this test streamed, is just thinking about the fact that we were able to do it 10 years ago. Like, we did that 10 years ago. So when you tell me like we can't do it, my brain immediately goes to, how did we fall from great? How have we fallen that far? Like, we can't do this anymore. Like, anytime you can stream to YouTube, I'll always be one of the people on the front of the battlefield on this. Like, I was there watching Fernando Alonso test. I saw the viewership numbers. Everybody did that watched that test. And making that test free on YouTube did so much for this sport. So much for their YouTube account, for their YouTube and social media accounts as well. Mind you, I think it was a missed opportunity. Maybe not the biggest deal in the world, considering that we're going racing next week, but yeah, it was definitely a miss.
I look at Mick Schumacher, and there is a whole new fan base coming over to maybe cheer for him, and Kyle Collette, who's not a huge star, but it's the first Brazilian that we've seen full time in IndyCar in a little less than a decade, and there are a lot of people that on a Tuesday when it's warm here in Indianapolis and we feel like, oh, it feels like the month of May, that would have tuned into this. So I'm with you on that missed opportunity. A couple of things I want to get to, and we got to get a list going here on this. Rocket, who is Kevin Blanche, who's the head of tech inspection, he was in the building at Phoenix today. I had been told that he had to reapply for an FIA licensing. Kyle, there are a lot of questions that we need answers to. When's this video game coming out? When are we getting the person that is going to head up this independent officiating council? Ray Evernham was there today. We haven't heard about that. We haven't heard from Mark Miles in 5 months since he handed the trophy over to Alex Palou. There are a lot of questions still going. What's the deal with the charters? When are they coming? Who's going to get them? What's it going to look like? Obviously, these are all answers that we have to have by the end of 2026. Some we're going to have before the season even starts, which is a little over a week away. But it was interesting to learn that Kevin Blanche, goes by Rocket, was there. Obviously, there was some scrutiny coming out of the Indianapolis 500 last year of tech inspection, and obviously this whole independent body is coming in. Any other questions that you for sure, Kyle, are going to need answers to? Because there's a lot of things that we kind of just haven't really heard about over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, with the tech inspection stuff, I mean, going into as early as, race one, right? Like, that's going to be the first time something happens, right? Something that is questionable, right? A call from race control or just anything. That's going to be like the first real test. And I'm not going to say unfortunately, because we all kind of hope that nothing bad happens, right? But
yeah,
until something bad does happen or something that's kind of on the line, you're not going to really know if anything's handled differently or how it goes. And so one of the reports from our man David Land, who's got boots on the ground, is that Ray Evernham was there, right? So he's one of the faces that's kind of newer. Haven't really seen him around the IndyCar paddock as much. So he's one of the hires from that board that I think kind of excited a lot of people because he brings a lot of good ideas generally. And you mentioned the video game. I said this a couple weeks ago of I haven't heard much about that in a while, and I'm hoping that they're waiting until the season starts up again. I've heard that St. Pete could be coming to iRacing soon, or is, because they're gonna have to add St. Pete for the video game, right? So that's good news. And from everything we've heard, the video game's still happening. But for a game that's supposed to release in the summer of this year, you would hope that they would have some type of date or marketing out there, some sort of activation to say, hey guys, we're doing this. This is still happening. Because I think all of us know how the last one went. But yeah, overall, those are the questions I kind of have going into the season so far.
And I think for the video game, I think you get to the month of May, make sure that all the liveries from that 500 are in there. Maybe we'll see some teases throughout the summer, and then towards the end of summer, we will get that official release. Well, we did get an answer to one of the biggest stories, the biggest question marks inside of IndyCar was whether or not Honda was going to return to IndyCar. We got the news late last week. There had been some rumblings over the last couple of weeks of whether this was going to get done. And I think Doug Bowles really took the bull by the horns, led the charge to get this done. I really do feel a year ago, we were probably more closer to Honda not staying in IndyCar than we were them leaving. And then it kind of changed. It was like, well, they seem like they might be leaving. They're flirting with NASCAR. There's, maybe the hybrid situation with the engine hasn't really gone the way that maybe they thought they would, because we made this huge fuss about the hybrid. And then obviously Scott Dixon's got to park it in the first race they had it. And I don't remember at a point last year, and the chat can really mention this if they want. The only time I really remember even thinking about the hybrid was like during Indy 500 qualifying, when we knew how much energy a driver had left. So this is huge. I mean, we're going to look back, and this is one of the biggest things that has happened to IndyCar in the last decade, because one, it doesn't let us go down a path where Chevy's going, well, we're not going to shoulder the load here of supplying the entire field with engines. And it doesn't seem like we've heard any sniffs of any other manufacturer coming in. With now having two manufacturers, and Honda and Chevy both staying, which Kyle, half the races are sponsored by either Honda, Chevy, and the other ones are either sponsored by Firestone, Java House, or Bitnile. It's huge. It's a great win for the entire series. It's a great win for everybody involved. I was glad it got it done. We finally got the answer. It doesn't become a distraction to the start of the 2026 season. And Kyle, honestly, I think Doug Bolles had a lot to do with this. We're going to see probably more than likely 99.8%. We're going to see factory teams, maybe one car for Chevy, one car for Honda. I had mentioned on this show back in October that Meyer-Shank Racing was entertaining a third entry for the 2027 season. Obviously, that would make sense, and maybe that lands as the factory team for Honda. There's a lot of things that we can dive into on whether or not does Joseph stay at Penske? Does he become the Honda driver? Does Chevy keep him and make him the driver inside of that factory squad? Does the 6 car, if Nolan Siegel exits stage left, does that McLaren 6 become the factory team for Chevy? And does maybe Joseph Newgarden land? There is a lot of speculation that we'll get into, but Kyle, I know it was certainly good for the entire sport to get this done before the season started.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's finally over. I'm glad that Honda is decided to stay, and with that is Chevy. That was kind of the concern for a while, was that Chevy would dip if Honda did. And look, I think we've had Honda for this long. It's kind of amazing, and I'm glad they're staying. I'm glad it's not going to be a storyline. I don't know how I feel about the factory teams. Mm-hmm. I think, I guess a team run factory car, I guess if it's being funded by Honda, if you can have a Honda, but like in a series that's spec, when you're not building cars, it's kind of a wacky idea. I like the idea if it's keeping the manufacturers on board. If that really turned the needle up for them, I guess that's cool. If Honda wants to win the Indy 500 themselves as a team they're not even running, okay. But it's going to be wacky. But if that's what kept the ball rolling and turned the needle for them, I guess so. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense when it's a spec series, right?
Yeah, it depends on who's in there. And I was a little bit hesitant towards it as well, because it was like, well, we'll see what that looks like. But when Chip Ganassi came out with a quote saying that he was all about it, and he was glad Honda stayed, and he looks forward to, I mean, obviously, if it goes to Meyer-Shank and that third car at Shank becomes, there's still a technical alliance with Ganassi, so maybe that's why he's on board with that. But it'll certainly be interesting. I mean, we talked about this already twice on the show, just the free agents to be, and Joseph Newgarden really being that first domino of where drivers could end up. Rinus VeeKay on a 1-year deal at Juncos. I think he's glad to be back in a Chevrolet. He was obviously had some speed today. He had some speed last week. It seems like that team at Juncos with Rinus is really getting off to a good start here early in testing. But I think Kyle, I honestly think it was whatever we need to get this done, because now having two manufacturers locked up through, let's say, 2030 could attract a third maybe manufacturer to come in. It'll be interesting to see who these teams choose to drive those factory cars. I mean, you're going to have Kyle, when you're looking for a factory driver, this is going to have to be somebody who's performed on all three types of circuits: road and street, or road courses, street courses, ovals. You could throw a fourth category in there if you really want to, with short ovals. Kyle Kirkwood is a guy that kind of maybe comes to mind as the perfect guy for Honda, who's won on all
He's in their
won on 3
commercial.
courses. He's in their commercial. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of possibilities, but it's going to have to be a race winner, and it's going to be somebody who can contend for races and race wins on a weekly basis.
So moving on, something that I'm excited to know what you think. I know you're not the biggest road racing guy, Tony, but it was talked about on Off Track with Hinch and Rossi this week, and Rossi brought up a new qualifying format that is supposedly going to be in a race this season at a street course. It's something that I've kind of been beating the drum on probably since I was like 19. Honestly, like I feel like I've said this for years. Is a top 6 shootout out on street courses, single car, one car. You get one lap, and all eyes are on you. TV gets to look at that one car. For those 6 cars, what do you think? Do you think this is more exciting? Do you like this more? Or you were like, whatever, it's qualifying on the street. What are your thoughts?
I think if it's one lap, I think that's mega, right? Like it really tests the driver's skill. It really showcases pushing it to the limit on a road and street course to get that top spot, because I think drivers will, obviously they're going for it as well, but the worst you can do is 6th. I think it's great for TV. I think it adds drama. It adds spotlight to that car and to the fan that might just be joining IndyCar. I think having 6 cars, it can be confusing, and then they're racing back to a line that isn't actually the start-finish line. It's actually the timing line that's set up. On Road America, it's way before you even get to the front straightaway. St. Pete is coming down that back way. So I think it would add drama. I think it would showcase the driver's skill. And it would allow to just have a sole focus on that one car, and what that one car needs to do. If it's the first car going out, you obviously know it's going to be the fastest off the bat. But that 6th car going out, which was the fastest car in the previous session, where it needs to be. And there's drama in if they go off the track, they hit the curbing wrong, they push the limit a little bit too far. There is added drama to that. And if you just want to base this off of what they do for Indianapolis 500, obviously the series is all about qualifying drama. So I'm certainly all about it. I think it would add intrigue and take away a lot of confusion to the casual fan on what goes on in road and street course qualifying inside of that top 6.
Absolutely. I agree. Look, I've been harping on the problems with IndyCar qualifying, I feel like, for the last 5-6 years now, like ever since I started doing this stuff. I think I really hope that they do this right, and the race that it happens at is just a massive success, and they realize how good this is, because, not only, look, the obvious good parts is that you get to see the drivers working, like, and truly, you're never going to miss the fastest lap in qualifying, because from a broadcasting perspective, that's the hardest part, is knowing who's going quickest, and you have to show the pole lap live as it's happening. That's when it gets exciting, right? You're showing all 6 guys one-on-one, get to see what they're doing, and the pole lap you're going to get, on the broadcast live. And I agree. I think the only tweak is that there's only 6 cars. So really, like, the worst you're going to start is 6, which is why I've kind of advocated for a top 10 shootout, like Supercars does, like straight up. Watch Scott McLaughlin's Bathurst pole lap from a few years ago when he set the track record. Don't tell me, and then you can never tell me that a single car going faster than everyone else is not the most exciting thing to watch. The other part about qualifying that I think still needs tweaked is I don't like splitting the groups in the middle, in the first group. I think it's so confusing to explain to new fans, because I've had to do it so many times. And if F1 can take 22 onto a track, I know our tracks are shorter, but like if they can put 22 cars on a track, just give them a 15-minute session. 25 cars over 15 minutes. If you don't set your fastest lap in 15 minutes, like, I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, but they're going to start bitching about there wasn't enough room and this guy backed me up. I mean, think about Detroit when they had that's 9 cars backed up. And I'll say this to a bigger problem, because I always talk about this. I don't think anybody really thinks twice when I say it, but how many unsafe releases are during a practice and a qualifying session where it's like, why would you send your driver out when literally 2 seconds or 1 second ago, another car went out? You're going to be stacked up behind them on a road and street course. as soon as you get out. I would say a couple things. That one, Fox can use their ghost car if there is 6 or 10. If it's single car qualifying, you can bring out that ghost car that everybody seems to like as well. I would look at it like this too. Maybe you even add a couple more points to the poll. Maybe you give these drivers a little bit more incentive to go out there and not save their stuff. I have some critiques on Indianapolis 500 qualifying. I mean, the pole sitter has to go out and qualify 3 different times. Like, I think what it should be is your top 12 going into Sunday. That top 6 is locked in. You're locked in until you get bumped out of that top 6. So let's say you're 8th. So 7 through 12 should have an opportunity to go out one time and bump themselves into that top 6. And if they do, that driver that gets bumped out, then he gets attempted. Everybody gets one attempt, and then after that one attempt, now if you're on the pole going into Sunday and nobody tops you, then you're good until that Fast 6 shootout. But I think that there needs to be more money if you're going to do it the way you do for the pole winner. I'm not saying add a conversion van like it's Al Jr. in 1994, but there needs to be more money and more points for the Indianapolis 500 pole. What is it, Kyle? 100,000? That's what it was, 25 years ago as well. So
yeah. These cars are sketchy. It's not like what they're doing is easy, right?
I think to get more out of any IndyCar weekend, especially ones outside of the 500, I think anything you can do to make qualifying more intriguing, more drama prone.
Look, and if you send all 25 cars on track, a lot of comments saying, there's not enough time. If you give 25 drivers 15 minutes to set the fastest lap that they can set, they have 15 minutes to do it. And if you can't do it in 15 minutes, then like kick rocks. And guess what? You know what else is going to happen to make it exciting? Yes, they're going to get in each other's way, and they're going to get pissed off about it to each other.
And they're going to get in each other's face when they get out of the car. It's going to be
that not exciting? Like,
and you know what it really does? It really puts pressure on a spotter. Finding a gap can sometimes be the hardest thing during qualifying. I've learned that just doing spotting for Indy Next, like finding that gap and knowing, hey, I need to get my driver clean air by at least 4 to 5 seconds on any course is also something that I think adds drama to it. So you could cut to a spotter and see what's going through his brain of like, I got to get my driver out and give him that space.
Do you know what's worse than someone impeding someone in qualifying? Having split groups where one group has all the Penske cars and all the Andretti cars where it makes like 8 cars for 6 spots. And then the Weenie Hut Junior group where if you qualify 7th, or if you qualify 9th in the big boy group, you then qualify like 5 rows behind a guy you ran a lap almost half a second quicker than. But because the groups are split and you ran at different times, it's not fair. It's not the right way to do this. F1, Q1, Q2, Q3. It's not that hard.
We'd have to look at too. I mean, I wonder what the average starting spot, obviously Alex Palou was on a tear last year, but the average starting spot of winners for the last couple of years, where I would have to say, especially at road and street courses, 80% started inside of that top 6. I know Indy Next, which is totally different. Like you have to qualify top 4 to even have a chance. But I'll go back and look of the average starting position for a winner on road and street courses over the last 2 or 3 years. Because Kyle, it has to be those drivers that are inside of the top 6.
Mm-hmm. In other rule news and good news, we're gonna get positive here. Mandated double stinting alternate tires on road courses. Bang. We needed that because you know how many times we'd get a yellow in the first 3 laps and people would just duck in, get off that and then not have to worry about that alternate stint. This finally actually makes the strategy a bit interesting and makes the alternates mean something. Because I think Firestone has done a better job recently where the alternates have actually been falling off quite a lot. But like we've just had these races where like when the tires are good and we're about to have a banging race because the tires are good, we get that early yellow and then they get off the tires and nobody's on a split strategy. So actually a good change.
I think where this really came in mind was the start of last season, right? Wasn't it? We had one caution on that first lap at St. Pete, and then I think we went caution 3 through the next 3 races. So that's when, late in the run at Thermal, when Palou was on a charge and was passing Lundgaard and Pato O'Ward, it really made a difference. I think that the alternate and the tire strategy is more for the hardcore fan. And I think it needs to be explained a little bit better because, you show up at a racetrack and you just walk by somebody and they're going, well, why is this guy's tires green and this guy's tires are red, or these guys, there is some confusion to that. So maybe these are all things they can just put in their app, and every time you go to the racetrack and have to update it, because it seems like every time we try to pull it up, we got to update that app one more time. That can be in there. I'm sure it is, but just kind of having that ready to go. But yeah, I think this is huge, especially on those late race. Either you get a caution, what do you do? Or the long green flag stints to the end of a race, like we saw for the majority of the start of last season.
Yeah, hopefully you're going to get some guys in the back, and some of those long stints, take that alternate stint, maybe second to last before when everyone, kind of go off strategy a bit and try and actually make some moves happening. Because I think one of my biggest critiques as well with IndyCar was also the lap counts. Because I remember like being a fan growing up 20 minutes from Mid-Ohio, I had to learn how to get really into strategy in races for it to be exciting, because that's all Mid-Ohio is. And when they so much has changed the race 10 laps longer or shorter, makes a huge difference in how it plays. And a lot of times they were decreasing laps when they shouldn't have been, and completely took the tire strategy out of it, which they've fixed. So now they've made the races on average, most races they've changed laps on, they've made them longer, and they've also now mandated the double tires, which Drew brought up. That I do remember this. We did that at the Indy Grand Prix last year, and I think that also it made it a better race. If you remember back to that race.
Let me ask you this, kind of going back to that top 6 point in qualifying. How would you like to see the tire distribution inside of that fast 6? Do you stay on the tires that you advance to that final 6, or do you say, hey, whatever you on, you have to flip flop? What's some of the tire strategy you'd like to see in that fast 6 shootout where it's single file or it's single car qualifying?
This is going to be a really good question to ask next week to some of the drivers or some of the teams, because that's a good question. Because my actual opinion is, I think I've always thought this with shootout qualifying, even when we did it in karting, that you should get a separate set to run specifically for that session, because I don't like the idea of making the fast 6 and it being a kind of a bad thing, because then you have to use your tires. That's how it is in the fast 6 now, sort of, unless you're a rookie, because you have that extra set. Is like, damn, maybe I'll run the primary set here so I can have a sticker set of alternates. But I mean, now that you have to run 2 of them in the race, and most of the time they like to get a lap on them anyways, to kind of make sure they're scuffed. A 1 lap shootout format probably isn't the worst thing, but I would like maybe an extra set of alternates. Maybe you have one, you give a set to the team that makes the fast 6, or maybe the fast 12. I don't know.
Yeah, certainly things that IndyCar is going to continuously look at, critique, and move forward. Some news that we had talked about on the show a couple weeks ago. We had it confirmed at Media Day, the Penske-Foyt alliance, and it was kind of a question mark. With obviously we learned about this happening a couple years ago, and then obviously it made sense with David Malukas, and there was some connection with running him at Foyt. And then he would ultimately end up being Will Power's replacement, whether it was at the end of the 2026 season or 2025. We obviously know that it was 2025. Look, I think this is good. I think any team alliance with the powerhouse team and a smaller team helps. I think this helps, and I think this has a lot to do with, one, Santino Ferrucci is really good on ovals. He's fast on ovals. This helps. I think some of the things that he does with the dampers probably does help Penske in the long run. And I do think Penske likes Kyle Collette. I think they have a keen eye on him in his rookie season in that AJ Foyt Racing number 4 Chevy. So that was cool to see. Marshall had it, so I guess it's now obviously official if Marshall has it. But I think that's huge. And we continue to see these teams want that extra test day, and how important that extra test day is, Kyle. We see now, I was at Indy Next Media Day, as mentioned about a week and a half ago. We've seen now how important it is for these IndyCar teams to pair with Indy Next teams to develop drivers and have that extra test day, which, yes, it's a driver that doesn't have experience in IndyCar, and it's an Indy Next driver coming in to test one day. But a lot of times we say this with rookies, you don't know what you don't know. So they may say something that it's like, this is off, that maybe a veteran driver would be used to, and just, oh, that's just part of it. Well, hey, I didn't know that was something. Let's bring that up. So, we talk about, Larry Mack brought this up so much last week during Daytona, and we'll get to a little bit of Daytona, of like, anytime you could be on the track practicing and learning is key to the success and the information of a team. So I was happy to see that the Foyt Penske Alliance officially came out. I think it also came out, Dario and Hinch are running the truck race down at St. Pete. So get your tickets to that turn 1 bleacher, because they're all going to dive into turn 1 on lap 1, and they're going to hit that tire barrier. There is no way on God's green earth they'll finish lap 1 under green. They will be wrecking, they'll be smashing, they'll be banging. So looking forward to that race coming up on Saturday.
Did you see? I don't even want to bring attention to it, but I will, because you know what? As much as I hate it, I respect Daniel Dye for stirring up some drama and some, because I made me mad, but he's called us out. He said that the truck race is going to be more exciting than the IndyCar race, because they're going to be beating and banging and wrecking each other, and there's not going to be any good racecraft happening, but boy, oh boy, they're going to be wrecking each other. And that's why it's going to be more exciting.
I'll say what I say about the road courses that we see any NASCAR competition level run on. I'll say exactly what I said for that. Like I say for the Daytona 500, it's a total shit show. It becomes WWE on wheels. But you know what? Damn it, I'm going to sit there and watch it. So honestly, he probably isn't wrong from a drama wrecking. I'm going to crack a bush light open. I want to see somebody get dumped. I want to see somebody get pissed off. When it comes to the WWE entertainment of racing, you know what? That truck race probably is going to be a little bit more, I don't know if exciting is the word, but I'll say more entertaining. And I'll quote the late, great Robert Duvall, who we just lost this week. It'll be low down shit ass racing.
I'm so excited. And shout out to Tony. Shout out to you for having the scoop on Dario Franchitti months in advance. Great job. If I had the whiteboard, I would have the Tony Good Boy one. Like,
Washington D.C. Washington D.C. and Dario, man. I got eaten up on Reddit, but you know what? It's okay. It's all good. Cool to see Dario. Like, when I was told this on New Year's Eve, actually, I was like, man, but the person that told me and who they had gotten it from, I was like, well, those people would know. So that'll be cool. It'll be cool to see Hinch back in action. And again, we talk about a shit show. A lot of drivers with nothing to lose. The trucks race in Atlanta this weekend.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I think this is the second race of the season. So the truck series getting off to two absolute bangers of the truck race that we saw the other night. It was Chandler Smith, I believe, won. And then now your second race to start the year is going to be.
No, they're in Georgia. They're in
Georgia. Okay, so again, it's still a restrictor plate track. So really,
I do remember seeing that. The truck schedule this year is a banger. There's a lot of good races on those.
Three total flip a coin shit show type races to get the season started. So Daniel Dye might be right on the fact that, you know what, it could be a little bit more entertaining. It's going to be better racing. Entertaining and exciting is what that truck series race is going to be. Daytona 500, absolute shit show. Tyler Reddick gets it done. I like Tyler Reddick. I've got nothing against him. I mean, this wasn't a fluke win. A lot of times we see a fluke win. He was second last year. He's won some races. Obviously, him moving to the Denny Hamlin, Michael Jordan-led team has been huge for his career. He looked like a Harvard student today when he was doing his media tour in New York City with his khakis and his glasses on. You wouldn't have never thought that was a NASCAR driver, but overall, it was like we were waiting for the shit show of the last 20 laps to happen. It certainly did. NASCAR finally beat Mother Nature and got one in before the rain started. But Tyler Reddick, your winner. Zane Smith was close, man. He won stage one and was right there. I thought he was going to dive bomb Chase Elliott down the back straightaway, but second through 10th, Kyle, all ended up wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, listen, honestly, I know a lot of our audience tunes out whenever we say the word NASCAR, right? But
yeah.
Over the last couple of months, the return of the chase, man, if they got rid of stages, like they'd have me right now. I'd be back on board. Like
that was the craziest tweet that I had all weekend, was just like, wait a minute, we just wasted 8 laps on a yellow flag for the damn stage break. Like 8 laps at Bristol, I understand it's a smaller track, but 8 laps on a 2.5 mile oval, like, are you freaking kidding me? What are we doing? I mean, I know most people are napping anyway, but damn, we got to get rid of these stage caution laps that count. Like, let's go back to the old Saturday night racing where yellows for stages do not count.
What's funny is a lot of the NASCAR audience hates strategy. They don't like a chess match. They want to just see full on balls to the wall, beating and banging, just racing, which I respect. You know, that is their thing, right? Like, I remember 2011. This all came around like when I was a kid in 2011. The races I enjoyed was like, go back and watch Kansas. You know, 2011, Brad Keselowski on the clutch pedal in the corners trying to save gas. Like I thought that stuff was cool. But I think most of the audience that watches NASCAR didn't, and the stages just takes away all of it. But look, like there's positives and negatives to this Daytona 500, honestly, for once, for me, right? Like I enjoyed watching guys coming back out on track to try and gain spots because I liked seeing race one. Like, and even though the race ended terribly, they lost me the moment host of our crash, because like, oh boy, there's the demolition derby.
You knew if anybody was leading, if you knew no matter who was in second, when Hocevar took that white flag, he was getting at least moved out of the way.
But you know, Tyler Reddick gets out of the car, and there's no mention of like, oh, he gets to, you know, starts off the year, gets to fight for a championship. No. This race actually mattered points wise. You know, because even though, you know, you do have the 10 race chase, I like the way they did it, because if you start 16th in the chase, the way they staggered the drivers, they didn't just even it out. If you're starting 16th in the chase, you're screwed, buddy. Like, so every race matters right now. I enjoyed that. I think just the biggest in the race ended. It was a daytime Daytona 500 that didn't get rained out. That was awesome. That got me in the feels. That was intense. But the racing in the Gen 7 car sucks on plate races. It's terrible. Like the fact they can't even touch each other without wrecking. Like that's the real problem. It's not. The racing is bad. The drivers are stupid, but like you can't touch each other out there without wrecking, and you can't, like, if you're going 3 wide, 40 cars under a blanket, like it's gonna happen. You're gonna end up, you know, bumping each other, drafting. Like it's the fact that their cars are so sensitive and the bumpers just don't match up well, that they just wreck all the time. It's tough. And, you know, you get to a point at the end of the race when they're 3 wide under a blanket and they can't pass each other either. Like it sucks. And it's sad because you go back and you watch 2010, any race before the repave, trust me, go back and rewatch those if you haven't in a while. I did this off season. One of my favorite things in the world is bumpy Daytona. What's like seeing a stock car loose on Daytona, amazing. You know, we're never going to get back to that with how much downforce these cars have. It's a joke.
I thought the Xfinity race was pretty good. Now, it's not going to look good on paper because Austin Hill won again, but I thought the Xfinity race was entertaining. I mean, look, you're never going to have a restrictor plate race again where you don't have a big wreck and a big pile up, and we saw that. But you know, there were guys up there like Brennan Poole who had a massive save with a couple laps to go from wrecking the field, and he ultimately had a chance to win. I think people like the Daytona 500 because you don't know who's going to win until the final 2 laps and really the final lap. And I think Reddick came across the line on the white flag in 5th or 6th, and I got that push from his teammate to get past Zane Smith, to get past Chase Elliott down the stretch. But you know, there is an opportunity to have an upset winner, or maybe to have somebody win that you wouldn't expect. So it was cool. I'll say this, and it was mentioned in our chat. I think Austin Lawton, our buddy, said it's the speed couple of days. man, I just didn't feel like, Kyle, there was as much hype and momentum for the Daytona 500 as there usually was. Wednesday night, you had the single car qualifying. Thursday, you had the duels. And it was just like, Saturday, you had the ARCA race, which shout out to ARCA. They were on Big Fox, but I just didn't feel as much momentum, build up, and excitement, anticipation for this year's Daytona 500 as I've had in the past.
It's funny, like, as a fan of racing, if you look at the Daytona 500 and the Indy 500, it's almost like we need to, like, and saying this in a joking sense, but like, it's like good and the bad are literally mirroring each other. Like the Daytona, the Indy 500, what we have going for us over here in Indy is that we have a month of buildup and hype and culture that surround, like, this entire city during the month of May surrounds this race. And like, we all go to the track. Not everybody goes, the whole practice week, but like qualifying week, like everyone knows that cars are on the track because they can hear them in the community.
Yep.
The whole city just kind of gets around this race, where the Daytona 500 has shrunk so much that it's just qualifying happens on Wednesday night and you forget it's happening. Yeah. The duels just kind of like happen, where like they used to have the week. You used to show up at the Bud Shootout. You used to have Fox covering testing in January. It was such a big deal, and I remember being home from snow days at school, and that was awesome.
I couldn't wait as a kid to get off the bus and watch that first Gatorade duel, and then obviously watch the second one. Like, and you're right, Speed Channel, Fox, they were down there, they were covering it. There was hype, there was a big deal, and that's what I was talking about kind of today with being able to stream this Phoenix test. Like, any kind of hype and momentum that you can give yourself heading into the season, like you have to do when you're IndyCar.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we have right now that they don't, is kind of that hype and build up. But then when you go to race day for the Daytona 500, and honestly, like, we have a good pre-race, we have a good like social presence. I think we have a decent social presence, but NASCAR's, like, they definitely have done a better job, I would say, and they have things going for them. Like, of course they got lucky, but like Michael Jordan winning the Daytona 500 and being on every single Twitter account known to man, it felt like, after the race. NASCAR made it to Sports Center again this year. Like, IndyCar, like Indy 500, like we've done a good job over the last couple years, but like I would have to imagine that the digital footprint post race for the Daytona 500 is probably miles above where IndyCar is, so especially this year with Michael Jordan, right? But like, that's like, again, the good and the bad like mirror each other, because it's like we have the whole month, everything. We've probably a better culture leading up to the race, like everything that surrounds it. But like the Daytona 500 on race day, like they have such a good digital presence. The NASCAR social channels knocks it out of the ballpark. They had like 2 hours of pre-race. They had so much pre-race that they said that they'd moved the race start time to 1:30, and then they were somehow able to trick us all into starting the race at like 2:15 actually, because they had just had so much pre-race. I started watching. They had pre-race from, I think it was noon or maybe 11:30 to 2:30 is when green flag actually happened. Like, that's unreal. That's insane. That's so good. And it was on Big Fox like the whole time.
And I would say this, we talk about solving some of the marketing problems and some of the things that IndyCar does or doesn't do compared to other motorsports. I go back to what we saw over the weekend. I wasn't down there, but I knew that the Wendy's down the road was all decked and themed out because NASCAR has a bunch of sponsors that are fan friendly that you can go out and support. I mean, I saw so many different drivers at different convenience stores hyping up, if Monster Energy or, Chase Briscoe was at the Bass Pro Shop down the road. I mean, there are so many sponsorship activations inside of NASCAR. When it comes to IndyCar, Kyle, if you think about it last year, if I were to ask the casual fan, did you get an autograph outside of Indianapolis Motor Speedway? The only two things that I can remember really coming to mind were the Mission Foods Arrow McLaren autograph sessions that went on at the Kroger. I think there was only one at the Kroger here in Speedway. And then we had some with Marcus Ericsson, obviously, throughout the community. But, and I had even asked somebody inside IndyCar, I said, can you give me a list going into the month of May of like where you're sending drivers to, where, is a driver going to be out, just displaying their sponsorship? Is Joseph going to be at a Shell gas station somewhere that we can go to? Oh, well, we only worry about the autograph sessions inside of the racetrack. Well, you need to be worried about the autograph sessions that are going around the community and making more of them, because back in the day when I was a kid, NASCAR is a perfect example. You had Ford Fest or Dodge Fest downtown on the circle. You had these hyped up events. Like, you look at the field last year, and, it would have been so cool to know that said driver, and I don't know if this happened or not. This is just an example I'm going to use, but like, hey, Santino Ferrucci is going to be down at Foyt Wine Vault tonight signing autographs, or such and such driver is going to be at Kroger in Carmel because he's hyping up an energy drink, or Pato Awards, they're hyping up an electrolyte. Like, I think there was a lot of activation with well-known consumer-friendly sponsors that really moves the needle, I think, for NASCAR. Now, that obviously probably you're going, well, wait a minute, I thought you just said there wasn't a lot of hype. But again, I wasn't down there. I'm talking about if I was down there, I'd probably be a little bit more hyped. One, because I'm going to go to Wendy's and go to this drive-thru, and it's racing theme. Like, Indy and IndyCar and the Indy 500 just needs more of that. Then they needed people to attend and show up to support it.
Yeah, I think we underutilize downtown Speedway a lot. Yes. I think in the month of May. And what we've truly lost, I think, is like the drivers still go around and do a lot for the community. I don't want to undersell that, right? Like, Community Day still exists. It's not as like fan friendly. It's more community friendly. Like, the drivers will go to schools and I think I don't want to undersell that or say that that's a bad thing, but I imagine, what if we did a true community day in downtown Speedway, maybe in the afternoon when kids get out of school, where you bring drivers, you do the Nashville pit stop competition in downtown Speedway. Like, you do that in front. You could open up Dallara, and Dallara could have cars and things. Like, you could do a true community day the Wednesday for the 500. You could do. So I mentioning the Wendy's is cool, because that's a good point too. And what Daytona has over us right now is, by what I saw on social media over the last 3 years, I want to go to the Daytona 500, not just because it's a bucket list of mine. It's probably the biggest race in North America I haven't been to. I want to go to see all the sponsorship stuff in the fan zones. That looks like fun.
And I've said this, I think I mentioned this to you, what the town of Speedway and IMS does during IMSA and during Brickyard. Like, I know that it's probably a pain in the ass, but you can't pull out your backup cars or a show car and display all 33 cars. One, I think it'd be cool to do on the main straightaway during the day before the 500, and do it during the public drivers meeting and have all 33 cars, have an awesome photo taken in the deck in turn one.
Legends Day is kind of quiet now.
Yeah. And like,
quieter than it used to be.
On Main Street, which I know is a lot, that would be absolutely massive. And I think that's just, it's just little things I talked about, like in Phoenix. It was cool they did the 100 days, the Indy part of the air night. I attended. We had free Oscar Mayer wieners. The Wienermobile was there. They had parkside cards for drivers to sign. That was like the hardcore fan. Like, I think everybody that I saw in there, I would put in the hardcore fan category, right? People were wearing their stuff, and that's great. It's great. But, we think about, okay, so you're going to Phoenix in 2 weeks, Kyle. Have you heard anything about a driver going on local radio and TV in Phoenix? Is anybody going? I know that the Coyotes and the Suns, I think, are off because of the Olympics and the All-Star game. But, are they saying, hey, Graham Rahal, we need you to stay here on Thursday. We're going to send you into 6 elementary schools to hand out free tickets in the greater Phoenix Scottsdale area. And then we're going to invite, the local news to come to these schools and film and then have you interviewed, and let's go to a local Boys and Girls Club. Let's give out free practice day tickets. I know you'd have to work with the track, and there's some NASCAR things that go into that, but Kyle, we know there are going to be a shit ton of open seats on that Saturday when the O'Reilly Series and IndyCar runs on the same day. You could literally take an entire section and go, and this goes for any track. This should be standard at any track. Go into elementary, middle, and high schools around the area, give out free tickets, take a driver, educate fans that this is coming to town this weekend. Come check it out. And you just seem to not ever hear any of that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're missing a little bit now, is that in-person kind of marketing. It's definitely important, more important than you think, right? Like I know last year where I work with Kart Chaser, we sent a cart, like 2 carts, and the drivers down in their suits over
Yeah.
to the STEM class to sit outside. And as the parents and kids walk by, there's a go kart sitting there. You go, oh, what's that? And we gave them free pit passes to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway the next weekend. And, damn it, for a sport that doesn't get fans in the stands ever, which is something we're trying to kind of grow and build, we had people show up in grandstands to watch professional karting, and it was badass. It was only a few, right? Because we went to one STEM school, but like those little things, you do enough of that over the course of our, guess what, 6 month off season. Yeah, like.
Well, and yeah, the Coyotes are no longer in existence. My bad. They are the Utah Mammoth. But the point being is, you talk about reaching that next generation, and you're relying on, well, maybe they'll turn over from the snake pit and come out to the Indianapolis 500. No, you need to be inside of elementary schools, giving free tickets away. And I think, Kyle, showing up these drivers, not just in polos and khakis and their sponsored T-shirt on, right? Because but what makes them immortal, makes them these superheroes, is have them show up in their suits, have them put their helmet on, show like this is not just something that your dad can hop in and do. Like, this is amazing stuff that these drivers are doing, and come out and see them going 150, 200, 225 miles per hour. But,
Right.
What do I know? They already have me in my viewership. So I guess we're falling on deaf ears, Kyle.
I have something fun for the last 5 to 10 minutes of this show here. All right. So you made a good point earlier, and we were texting Tony that we have not heard anything on the Carb Day concert yet. And this time last year that was announced. So we really don't know anything because we haven't heard anything. But if there's to be a Carb Day concert, which we think there will be, right? Who's your first pick in the chat? I'm gonna put this on you guys too. I want you guys to start filling in. Who's your dream Carb Day concert?
I think it's time for my annual tweet and Facebook post of, who's going to be the Carb Day band concert, or who's going to be the Carb Day concert. Wrong answers only, right? Because, I think the running joke is, just go look at the local casino and pick somebody from that list. Look, here's the thing. IMS marketing department, one of their least favorite days of the year is always when they announce the Carb Day concert. I think last year was maybe a little bit different. I think they were excited because you had some bands that really touched, that 22 to 52 demo that you're looking for.
Is that really what you're looking for, though? Like, what if we switched it up? Is that what you want the Carb Day concert to be? Because I'm really thinking, like, we can talk about like a realistic expectation of like what's actually going to happen versus would you want Carb Day to be reimagined a little bit? Because I know I would, at least, or maybe you keep Carb Day into that crowd and maybe bring Legends Day back to the Speedway. But in my mind, I think the concert is a great way to bring in a younger fan base. Like, I don't think you're going to bring in REO Speedwagon and grow the sport.
I think for me, I think, and look, we all care about the Carb Day concert until we get out there and everybody's a few Dale sodas deep and inside of turn 3, and your toes are tapping because you know the song. I did like kind of what they did last year, where it was a couple, it was a newer band that has had some songs come out over the last couple of years. Then you obviously had some acts that were 80s and 90s. I've always said like somebody like a Weezer, I think would be good. Weezer seems to maybe not be as big as what, because we're not getting somebody massive. We're not getting a Taylor Swift.
Well, okay, yeah, we're not getting like a Taylor Swift, but like, why not grab somebody? Because I remember when I went to my first 500 in 2014, it was Jason Aldean.
Yeah,
like, and that was huge. That's huge for especially in Indiana. Like, I think. Because it was always, you had Friday as the rock concert, Carb Day is a rock concert, and then Saturday is a country concert.
Yep.
And, I think, look, number one, we need to bring back the Legends Day concert. The stage is already up. Like we
Yeah,
haven't.
but
COVID happened and we
they're-
stopped doing that. Like
yeah, they're
we
not
should.
going to do that because there's just too much cleanup and it's too much of a turnaround.
I think it's how you bring in a young, like honestly, like I think if
It's just hard
you like,
logistically to do.
you just look at how many people show up to Ruoff on any given summer day. Like if
Let,
you
let
have the
me ask,
stage built,
let me
you know how
ask
many
you this.
tickets you can sell if you brought in like, I don't know, Camp as like
Yeah,
an opener and then another country artist.
I realize how unrealistic this is because it'll be like the day after the 500, the infield is just an absolute shit show. But what about like a Monday midday celebration and you can celebrate the winner and then you have a concert? I mean, obviously, as we know, there's going to be trash cans and beer cans and trash everywhere inside of that place. But maybe there's a roped off area that you can keep it clean on race day and allow for that to happen. Because I think the carb day stage is different than the snake pit stage. I wouldn't mind a young up and coming country act to open up for a band that we kind of already know. There's never going to be a perfect answer. People are always going to bitch. But again, at the end of the day, you and I can go up there and yodel, and people are going to be so drunk they probably won't give a crap.
Right. I mean, whoever said Green Day in the comments, I think that's like honestly, like that seems attainable ish, right? Like not too relevant.
Red Hot Chili Peppers,
and that's too much. I remember when they did that concert. No, it was Rolling Stones. Remember when the Rolling Stones did a concert?
Yeah.
At IMS on its own, and that was I remember that being like a big deal. That was still when I lived in Ohio, and I heard all about that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Green Day is my like number one. Or whoever's all the comments saying Blink 182, Blink 182 and Green Day, I think are the most probably realistic best answers, right? Like
Kyle, let me ask you this: is there any remakes of songs or any bands of that of like my 90s generation that have kind of, I mean, obviously Creed would have been huge last year because they've had a resurgence. They're on a race car. Like that would have been massive. But is there anybody else that comes to mind that you can think like, oh, they've collabed with another artist and they've gained some notoriety? I mean, or they're back on tour, those type of things.
I don't know. My music taste goes off and on. I mean, I Tame Impala went back on tour.
Somebody makes a good point. And I'm sorry that I don't know this, and I may get this wrong, but is Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton still married? Like, can I get a note?
So.
Can I get a note?
We had what year? It was 2016. We had Blake Shelton on the Legends Day list here. So like that's what I'm saying. We
had both of them in Iowa.
Yeah, we've completely lost. Like that's my point. We've completely lost having anybody relevant play a concert at IMS probably since 2016, as far as I can remember. On who's played. And we need to get back to that. We need to, I think we do need to, if we go to one concert, Carb Day, like we get rid of one of them, we just have one Carb Day concert. They can still do the Ruoff thing on Saturday. It probably doesn't cost me like, but
yeah,
if it was just one concert, we should do something. We should bring in someone like however much it costs, partner with someone, however you do it, to bring in like I'm not going to say like a Drake, but like of that like stature, you know, someone who's gonna, you know, that concert's going to happen. And then people are going to talk about Carb Day around the city, right? People are going to say like, oh, I want to get tickets to that.
Drake would be way too massive. And unfortunately, just what IMS runs into is there's a time limit that you can't get a certain band if they played within 90 miles. I think it's not. I'll ask Doug Bowles about this. I think it's 90 miles in the last 4 months. So you can't get anybody. And that really handicaps you because, you know, you think about May is really the kickoff to concert season in the summer. So if said band is playing down in Louisville, they're not going to be able to play in the month of May. So I think they are really limited on what they can do. And I think they make the most of the budget. I don't know if I should say this, but I'm pretty sure they paid Rick Springfield right around $350,000 to play Jesse's Girl 3 times a couple years ago. So
2022, I looked it up because I wanted to go through the names because I've been really real smack talking them. I wanted to. All American Rejects was good. I'm not gonna lie, that was good.
They also had Bret Michaels with them, right? There was a good lead into that.
George Thorogood, Rick Springfield. That was 2022.
Yeah.
Florida Georgia line in
All right.
2020, or was supposed to.
Yeah.
Remember that they were supposed to have Florida Georgia line in 2020. And then we
2016
get
was Journey, which was pretty big.
so we get to pre-COVID. So let's see what we, because that's 2020 happened. Before that, they were actually pretty solid. As far as I remember, we had Zach Brown Band in 2019. That's pretty sick.
Give me Fleetwood Mac. Just bring them back. Bring them out there on strings. They're about
Sam
on
Hunt.
the end anyway.
See, where did we lose the country concert? 'Cause Sam Hunt was pretty good in 2018.
Yep.
We had Keith Urban in 2017, and then we had
A lot
Blake
of that
Shelton
money
in
started going
16.
towards the snake pit. You know, when you got three major DJs that are probably charging $500,000 a pop.
Florida Georgia Line in 2015. Like, wow. Jason Aldean in 14. So, like, it's gone downhill. It's
Yeah.
Poison at Carb Day in 2013. That's crazy.
Hell yeah.
Leonard Skinner played Carb Day 2012.
Yeah,
That's
Pete
sick.
Cooler that day. Leonard Skinner was great. Yeah, I remember that. It wasn't raining, but I think it had rained overnight, so everything was just dirty. Same with Stone Temple Pilots in 2008.
Incredible.
That was we were getting rained
Incredible.
on during that.
Unbelievable.
We'll see, but again,
three doors down in 2009. Wow.
Hell yeah. We bring this up because it was this day last year that we learned the Carb Day concert. And I'll say this before we wrap up. Let's hype up, and I've said this, and I will die on this hill. Let's hype up the driver intros a little bit more. Like, it needs to be. I know Dave Calabro, he doesn't like doing them. He told me.
I wish David, this is a conversation topic that I wish David was here for, because David hates the driver intros.
It needs to be better. I don't, it's been good at times where you've had a DJ out there, but there just needs to be, like, I thought the Daytona 500 one was cool, but there just needs to be some like major hype, like to that starting lineup of the 33 drivers, and having music blaring and fire and smoke. That's totally fine. But like, let's make it like, starting lineups are cool. When you go to a Pacer game and the lights go out, and it doesn't matter if the team's 8-32 or it's the NBA Finals. Like, it gets you hype, and I think there needs to be a little bit more added to the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, the Pacers suck right now, and I still get hyped for their games. Honestly,
yeah. It's going to be all good. Just give them a couple more months. So, all right, don't forget to join. The link is in the chat right there for the Unverified IndyCar Fantasy League for 2026. We'll come up with some prizes throughout the year to give out to some of our players. We've got some big things coming up over the next couple of weeks. David will return next week. We will preview St. Pete. We'll give you predictions for the season, and we'll look back on this final day of testing at Phoenix coming up tomorrow. For Kyle, I'm Tony. Thanks for joining us on Unverified. We'll see you here next week.